Sitting down here enjoying the wood stove. It's a cold day here in the mountains of southern Appalachia, so it feels really nice to sit down here by the wood stove with a book. I have a very old book. I was looking through it, looking for something that I had seen in it, and then I realized I should show it to you. We're always talking about language, of course, old sayings and phrases and words. And then on Mondays, every Monday, you help me gather those wows, words of wisdom. There's a little bit of that in here, but mostly there's just examples of language, thinking about old words, archaic sayings, those type things. But it's a really interesting book. Let me show you the outside of it. See that strange? I guess there was at one time something there. It's been pulled off. How I came to have the book was because of my daughters. They both worked at the John C. Campbell Folk School part-time several years ago, pre-COVID years. So in those days, and I really don't remember which one of them brought it to me. I don't remember if it was Katie or Corey. But the folk school was doing a big cleaning out. They were cleaning out their library room there, moving stuff around, and Katie and Corey, whichever one it was, but both of them would have done the same thing. They are their mother's daughters. They love old stuff as much as I do. So when they saw that a lot of this stuff was just going to be thrown away, they were just going to put it in the garbage, they said, "Could I take it?" And they said, "Sure, we'd be glad if you get it out of the way." So in that was a lot of books. It was like a whole box full of old books, and this was one of them. So I was so glad that they brought it to me. They knew I would love it. It's so heavy, much heavier than today's books. It's just kind of strangely heavy. But when you look in it, really neat. Right there they had the that it belonged to the John C. Campbell Folk School, library of the folk school. There's a little note there that says, I think it says Max or Mox, $4. Maybe that's what they paid for it. I don't know. It's interesting, I noticed right away, in that a lot of the pages, see, are still, like they're not cut. I researched online and found that old books, this is a really old one, I'll tell you more about that in a minute, were often sold like that, where the pages had been printed large and then they're folded in a manner where they're put in the book, because they left it to the individual to, once the book was published like this, the printer, then who bound it was supposed to uncut those places. It never was cut in this one. On some of the pages, some of them are. So that was interesting. The name of it is Word Book, a Virginia Folk Speech, and it was written by B.W. Green, Richmond, that's the copyright, W.M. Ellis Jones, book and job printer, 1899. So that's how old it is, 1899. And then the little dedication is to Virginia people by one of them, which is really sweet. I like that. And then he has like a foreword where he's talking about the language and the influence of the language for the people at this time in Virginia that had, of course, been influenced by people from England and from different places, settlers who had come here. It also has some Virginia names. I think that's really interesting, like surnames, a lot of them. Starts with the A's and goes all the way through. It's interesting. It says spelt one way and called another. I bet that's like where you live. There's probably some people's names that are said one way and then they're said a different way, maybe by someone that's not from there that doesn't know. Sometimes even in the same area, a name will be called by different, depending on the family. It's real interesting that. I know of a family in Robbinsville is like that, where we grew up saying it one way, and they said it, was their family name, but then people with the same name that live maybe in another part of Graham County, they said it a different way, so that's interesting. And then it gets into, has some sayings. That's some of the ones I was going to share with you. And then the rest of it's just like a dictionary, just words of all through the alphabet, old words that are unusual, words that are totally fallen out of fashion, and just like some of the sayings, of course, because times have changed, but still interesting. Here's one that I've shared with you before. I just happened to see it. Shank's mare. On foot is to ride Shank's mare. If you go by Shank's mare, you're walking, basically. We'll look at those maybe in a minute, but I wanted to share some of these sayings with you, though, just because they're so interesting. Accidents will happen in the best regulated families. Ain't that the truth? Every family has accidents. Thinking about like accidents like falling down the steps, but also just accidents that maybe hard times in your family, one of you made a mistake. A bird dying in your hand will give you the palsy. That's an interesting one. A chunk of fire falling on the hearth is a sure sign that a stranger is coming. There's so many of those in Appalachia. We were talking about them recently, and I think maybe that was in a live, where if your hand itches or if your foot itches. A creaking door never falls. That's an interesting one. A dog's howl is a sign of death. Everything's a sign of death in the mountains of Appalachia. A face that would stop a clock, that is repellent. That's not very nice. After breakfast, walk a mile. After dinner, sit a while. A feast or a famine. It's true. Seems like that's how life is. Sometimes it's like a feast or a famine. A good run is better than a bad stand. And that's very wise if you think about it. I love it. A left-handed person owes the devil a day's work. That's a funny one. I live with a left-handed person. I bet most of you know who that is. A lick and a promise and a better next time. I bet a lot of you have heard that one. That's one that's still said fairly often. Well, I'll give it a lick and a promise. Meaning like if I was going to clean up the basement, like I'll just give it a lick and a promise. I'm going to have to do it better next time. But today, basically, I'm just going to sweep out and pick up just real quick. I'm not really going to clean more than straighten is what I'm going to do. A handful of salt will put out the fire of a burning chimney. I don't know if I trust that one. A month of Sundays. I bet you've heard that one. I hadn't seen you in a month of Sundays. A figure for a very long time or even eternity, it says. And this is one of those that would have totally fallen out of fashion and because of the times and the difference in money. A nimble sixpence is better than a slow shilling. A nod's as good as a wink to a blind horse. That's a good wise one too, though. Somebody that can't see just can't see, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I bet you've heard that one. I have, certainly. Any port in a storm. Now, there's wisdom in that one. If you're in a storm in your life, any port will do you. As long as you can get to a port and get out of the storm. This is an interesting one. A person made mad by the bite of a mad dog was smothered between feather beds to relieve him of his misery. Yikes, that sounds terrible. Well, I don't know, I'm kind of smothery, so I might smother being in between those beds like that. I feel like I couldn't breathe. I got to be able to breathe, but being made mad by the bite of a mad dog is the yikes part. This one's really funny. A person who never stole anything has a lock of hair growing in the palm of his hand. Who never stole anything. Well, I don't have any, but you know what? I have stole something. I told that in one of my videos. I told on myself. Or maybe I hadn't told on myself. That's my presentation at the folk school, so I don't think I've done that one yet, but if not, I will share that about my stealing that happened at the folk school. A potato carried in the pocket constantly will cure rheumatism. It all goes into the potato that becomes dry and hard. I would be afraid that the potato would become rotten and wet. I wouldn't be worried about it being dry. April showers bring May flowers. I know you've heard that one. A rolling stone gathers no moss, but a stagnant pool stinks. Now, I've certainly heard the rolling stone one, and I bet you have too, but I've not heard a stagnant pool stinks. That's funny. A stitch in time saves 9. I bet you've heard that one. We'll go over, I'll just do one or two more, a few more for you. A slice from a cut loaf is never missed, usually said to gloss over a breach of the 7th commandment. I don't know about that one. I think it might be missed if it was somebody that needed it, right? A sore on the tip of the tongue is a sign that you have told a lie. You'll have to tell me if you're familiar, kind of that same folklore being passed down. When I was young, if you had like a bump come up on your tongue that was real sore, have you ever had those, like a little rising on your tongue? people would say that's a lie bump. You must have been telling lies. So I'm sure that's where that comes from. A sleeping foot or hand relieved by crossing with the finger wetted in the mouth. I don't think that would work. A still winter's night with clear sky and twinkling stars, a sign of heavy frost. I've certainly seen that one to be true. You remember in one of our recent videos, before the first frost, Matt was predicting frost, and I said it can't frost unless this wind lays, and he said the wind would lay, and he was right, it did. And it did frost, he was right. A snake never dies till sundown. That old saying comes from the fact that if you've ever been around somewhere where someone killed a snake, maybe a poisonous snake that, you know, they were afraid of, the body of the snake continues to move and contort, and I've heard even, and you probably have too, stories of people being bitten by a dead snake because its muscles are still spring-loaded, if you will, so that would make sense. A strip of red flannel worn around the neck cures the sore throat. A watched pot never boils, another good one that I have to say that to myself all the time, waiting on stuff. A whistling woman and a crowing hen never come to any good end. I've heard that one my whole life. A word and a blow, and the blow first. That's a hasty temper. All on one side, like a jug handle. You think about like with the jug and the handle's on one side. You can see that. As bald as a coot. I don't know about that one. Pap was bald, you know, on top. He had a little bit. He'd brush back. And Corey, she was probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 or something. She started saying that Pap's bald head she thought it was just magic or something. So she'd rub his head. I don't think he liked it because she'd mess up his hair. But it was a funny memory. As big as a 9-pence chicken. I thought that would have been 9, but 9-pence chicken. So you'll have to tell me what a 9-pence. Is that like a piece of money? As big as I don't know what. That's a good one. As big as I don't know what. As brazen as brass. As bright as a new cent. As clean as a penny. As clean as a new pen. As clear as a bell. I know you've heard that one. I sure have. As clear as mud. I've heard that one too. Well, that's just about as clear as mud to understand. As cold as a frog. Seems like I've heard that one, but I don't really think about frogs being cold. As cold as charity. I really don't understand that one because I think charity is warm myself. As common as dishwater, or as common as dirt. That's kind of in parentheses, so that's a good one. Common as dishwater. As crooked as a dog's hind leg. A very crooked fence rail is made from a tree that grew in the night and was so crooked that it will neither lie on the fence nor on the ground. That's very crooked. As crooked as a ram's horn. As cross as 2 sticks. As cunning as a fox. I bet you've heard that one. I have. This is one makes no sense to me. As cute as the devil. I don't think the devil's real cute. As dark as a dungeon. So we'll quit right there on those. I'll just flip through here. We won't go over all of them, but you can see some of them are those weird, like that one's open. That one is too. And then there'll all of a sudden be some that are not open. I see some that maybe we still say today that's interesting. This is one I'm not familiar with, but I think it's great. I like it. Rallack, R-A-L-L-A-C-K. To run about after pleasure instead of attending to business. He goes rallacking about from one place to another. That's interesting. I've never heard that one. Ramshackly. Ramshackly. They don't put the D in there, but we say that one. Like, you know, tumbled down, disrepair, like it's ramshackledy, it's about to fall in. It's interesting that we put the D in there. Ramshackledy. I put the D. That's interesting. Rawhead. A spectre, a nursery bugbear of frightful aspect, usually coupled with bloody bones. It's interesting if you can just research that, Rawhead and Bloody Bones, but that was like a really ancient, old scary story, kind of a warning thing for children. And my Granny Gazzy used it on us when we were little. And she might tell me, like, don't go, her house was where it was sitting, still sitting there today, but it's kind of on a hill over the 4-lane and out in Ranger, and behind her house just kind of, there's a little flat place, and the rest of it just drops off into a long steep hill down to the highway. So she didn't ever want us to go back behind the house where she couldn't see us, because she was afraid we might go down there and get in the highway, you know. So she would tell me, she didn't say the Rawhead part, don't go back there because Bloody Bones might get you. Well, in my mind, I thought, I was scared of a lot of things when I was little, but I couldn't understand how a bunch of bones that were bloody would hurt me, so I was never afraid of Bloody Bones. So I did go back there. I did not go down the hill though. I stayed on the flat part. But that is a really, really old one. I've researched that before. I thought it was just something like Bloody Bones that she just kind of made up. And then years later, when I was writing on The Blind Pig and the Acorn, I realized that was a really, really old, like scary story told to warn kids to be good. Okay, let's see. So here's one. This is on one of those pages. It's kind of tucked together. I need to cut them. But scrooch, to draw up in a small space. You are scrooched up in the corner. Scrooch is one we say, and I've had people tell me they don't understand that. So I might say, like if I was sitting here and like maybe little Ira come down here, and I'd say, here, scrooch up close to me right here, sit right here by me. Or maybe on a church bench, I'd say, scrooch over so that I can sit beside you. Or of course you want to scrooch up with those little adorable grandsons too. I do want to scrooch them up real close and kiss them. So that's an interesting one, and it's in here. I wonder if there's, let's see, I'm trying to think of one I'd just like to see if it's in here. One we shared recently, let's see if it's in here. Touch Us. So when I was young, Pap a lot of times would tell me, don't, Tipper, don't be so touchous. Usually he would add, don't be so touchous and independent. You ought to always listen to somebody that's been down that road before. If I was trying to go off on my own way, he'd say, you know, we're just trying to help you. You shouldn't be so touchous and independent. It's in here, touchous, adjective. Apt to take offense on slight provocation, irritable, irascible, peevish, testy, tetchy. So that was definitely me as a teenager, I guess, when I was being hard to live with, and Pap would tell me that. Really interesting book. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit from it. If you did, let me know and I'll share some more. There's like way more sayings than that. I just quit right there, but I'm gonna sit down here and enjoy my fire. Binks has come to join me. He's sitting over here looking out the window, and might even go get me a cup of hot chocolate on this cold day and enjoy that. I'm always glad when you drop by to help me celebrate Appalachia, which you know for me is a whole lot about the wonderful, rich, colorful language.